Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Welcome back. So, massive amounts of drought are hitting China right now, and drying up huge parts of the Yangtze River, the famous river that I think most people, if you know of a river in China, the river you know of is the Yangtze, and it is the source of life for tens of millions of people, if not hundreds. And if it goes, so go they. There is no other way to put it. And there is nothing that the Chinese government has arguably been making it worse by diverting, because they make these giant mega structures. They take these cities and they wanted to make these giant gleaming cities to shock and stun the world with their, enormous mega cities. Well, those cities require a lot of water. And they did not exist. They did not have the population nor the need to exist before. So they diverted this water to these areas on the premise that one of these days, these cities are going to be full to the brim with people, and those people are going to need some of this water. There is only a finite amount of water in the Yangtze. It does not just magically fill up from, the sky vomiting water into it to whatever level it is at. It maintains it based on the regular precipitation. Its banks were created by millions of years of precipitation and erosion and movement. And when you, without any, the irony that this is a centrally planned system, and yet none of them, did enough geological survey to recognize this, that they have basically, not only have they petered out the vast flow of the Yangtze by dividing it as much as they did, but by doing so, the rivers that they materially made off of it, including the one that goes around Shanghai, around the Shanghai Bund, which is a fabricated river that was not there before. You could walk across that. Is now going back to its baseline. Nature, it's. I feel very Jeff Goldblum in this moment, where life finds a way, but it sometimes finds a way back to where it was, which was a dry basin. And we in the United States, we've done this occasionally, where we've built up dams and stuff to divert water and make it more viable for an area, and towns have built up around it because of that thing. And towns that may have existed before, when the water wasn't diverted, might disappear over time, over decades. But at no point did the federal government of America decide, okay, we're gonna, Phoenix is great, but we're gonna take a new city, like we're gonna make a brand new city in Arizona and feed it water.
Actually, Philip. And I'm sorry, Hal, Philip in our chat has a very compelling question. How about the Yellow River by IP Freely?
Yeah, it's gone. It's a light sputter. He's older now, though, and that's to be expected. It only runs 3 times during the night and in small and fits and starts.
Yeah.
I
pounced on that. I'm like, it's a third grader joke. Here I go.
No. I appreciate it. I love it. My favorite shirt in elementary school had a guy like a Keep on Truckin' kind of character drawing on it with a big book, and it said the name of the book was Rush to the Bathroom by Willie Make It and Betty Don't. And I love that shirt. I wore it to death. And it was one of those like old-fashioned 70s ones, so it cracked in the dryer, if you it's sad. It was never going to last very long, but it stank.
It's always a good one.
Yeah, so good. So, anyways, back to massive drought and famine. No, it's going to be necessary. We're going to have to laugh because we are no kidding. We are headed into the next 10 years are going to be a shift in the population of the earth in a way that most people couldn't fathom 10 years ago. Yeah, I will rarely say this, but Elon Musk is right about the population of the earth and the number of workers versus retirees. That's true in every country. One of the reasons why he's so acutely aware of it is because he just opened that gigafactory in China right at the worst possible time. They started launching that right before COVID, and then he's been throwing good money after bad. Yes, we are at a tipping point. That absolutely, Water Goddess. And
you know what? I forgot to mention a super chat from Amos Barrow. They sent in $10 of treat money for Mr. Chip.
Amos, thank you so much. It will get to him. Although I'm gonna have to find some that are like weight control. We're getting like right up against the end of this block, and I feel like there will never be enough time to talk about, on a weekly basis, what we have to talk about. So I'm just going to say, live stream, watch the show, infotainmentwars.com during the week. I'll be back on Monday. I have a morning show Monday, Wednesday, Friday, right after Stephanie Miller. If you listen to it on CPT, you can hop over onto my live stream and listen there. And then, of course, in the afternoons, 3 p.m. Pacific. Now, I have to say, like having traveled in China and then having our dear friend Philip, who'd been to Russia many times. This is humanity is at a turning point, and Americans in particular, also Canadians, a lot of Western Europeans especially, are going to dodge this in large part. There are going to be flailing stories of out of control immigration as people leave areas that are no longer habitable or that are stricken with war. All the stuff that like we've been talking about for decades is starting to kind of march a little bit closer. And the only way we're going to ever solve these things is to innovate our way out of it. That invention, science and technology is really going to be the only way that we will make it out of this. And that is the part, I think, the best part that America can play going forward is inventions, cures, that kind of stuff. And so everything that we can do to get people better educated for the coming future so that your great ideas meet the ability to make them happen. And an inventor is nothing if it is simply a flight of fancy. And that's why Biden's education, rollout this week of $10,000 of relief for student loans, on top of another $10,000 if you got a Pell Grant, on top of anybody who was in a service job where they were in the reserves or they're in the military or they were a nurse or they were working in emergency rooms and those kind of things, that the problem with like pausing their student loans during that time where they were supposed to get credit, and they'd have to keep refiling, intentionally making it difficult for them so that they wouldn't do it, and then they would end up owing more money. That's gone. That was an addition. Clarity in the rankings of schools in the studentaid.gov site that now tells you, well, if you're going to take out this kind of a loan for this kind of a degree, here's what you can expect to make in this field, and then that's a standard the school is judged on going forward. A genuine one for whether or not federal aid applies to that school, whether they're credit for it. And done in a way, of course, that made all the right people mad. Did it erase everyone's student loans? No. But the majority of people who have student loans have $26,000 worth of student loans, student federal loan debt, through multiple sources. That the first 10,000, second 10,000, and then credit served. That means like 42 million people are effectively getting their loans erased.
Mm-hmm.
Now, much has been made about why didn't you just zero it out for everybody? Rich people don't take out loans. That was what we heard. All right, everybody was like, rich people don't take out college loans. Yeah, they do, because rich people, if you look at Donald Trump and his ilk, know how to use loans to avoid.
Yeah, they totally take out loans. They don't get financial aid, but they do take out loans.
Yeah, but they'll get, if the federal loan is available and that's the lowest rate, and they can write off the rate, you've got the money to pay for school for cash. You can part with that money, or you can take a federal loan, which will pay for it. You just give that money back over time, which is a minimal amount of what you're making already, or your family makes already, and you write off the interest. And you keep this $40,000. So midway through your junior year, you've got startup money. Midway through, if you're going to you're going to be, create apps or as a breakout, or you can afford to, diversify how you take some of your classes, because you can work at the same time at a higher end job where you're making well beyond what the average person makes. Of course you take out that loan. Of course you do. But you're more apt to, by the way, take out $80,000 or $125,000 because you're going to an elite school, and that elite school allows you to rub elbows with other people who are going to elite schools to rub elbows with you, and therefore that you start a business with somebody you knew from Yale and da-da-da-da-da, and then we hear all these stories about how, oh yeah, that I met them at Yale and that they clerked for this judge that I knew because this judge. How many of those stories have you heard over the last couple of years when people talk about, judges or people who work in the DOJ or something like that, that's what you're paying for. The education's great, but part of it is you're paying for that slightly better professor who might be a little more knowledgeable and the ability to rub elbows. The idea that the American taxpayer should pay you to rub elbows with people as opposed to get educated is absurd. But the baseline cost of that, is crucial for a lot of people who are leveling up, who are moving from one class to another. That's where Biden's help was focused and where it will do the most good. And those folks who are looking forward to a payment that they would have to make towards their student loans, whatever that might be, maybe it's $125 a month, maybe it's $250, maybe it's they're getting more money, but their payments are going up, so it's almost like they kind of like even out their discretionary money that they could spend on themselves or their children or their family or their food or whatever, to eat better, to have a better phone, to get a better computer, to all those kind of things. They now have that as an option, and that lets loose the invention of those folks. You now have educated people not having to spend money on their student loan payments. That puts them not even with that person I was telling you that had the $40,000 to start with. They're not even with them. That person still did okay. That person may still get the relief on part of their loan if they did 80 and they paid half in cash and they got half of it in a loan. But ultimately, everybody gets that baseline shave off. So even people who bet on a bigger career that was more expensive, and they were like, I want to do this. I want to be, in government one day. I want to be a Supreme Court justice. So I'm going to have to go to law school to do this, and I'm going to have to work at, this level to get to that goal. I can't afford that unless I take out a huge loan. That person also, in that process, has some of theirs shaved off, but not the entirety of it. Therefore, educated populace that when they have inventive, creative, and important, forward-thinking ideas, they can now have the financial ability to implement it. And going forward, if you're going to educate yourself, you have more protections on that you will have a useful degree and that you'll have some sense of support if it turns out not to be, not by any fault of your own. I'm for it. I think he did exactly the right thing.
Yep.
You can tell because it pissed off all the right people.
Yep.
And the spikes on the margins went crazy. But the independents in the latest Gallup polling, since the CHIPS Act to student loan reform, up 7 points, ladies and gentlemen. The Republicans support Joe Biden at 4%. 4%. The same crowd that said we support the president no matter what because the threats out there are so big. 4% of Republicans support Biden. 81% of Dems. I don't know. I mean, I know who the other 19% are, and we see you. And you're lunatics, but bless your heart. And then, of course, the independents, which flop back and forth each time, up 7 points in the last month. 7, leading into a midterm of Biden and what the Democrats are actually making happen. It's a great sign. It's scaring the pants off of everyone else, and it is going to usurp, it's going to overtake the story about Mar-a-Lago and the raid and all that stuff and make Trump's legal woes look like a pitiful sidecar to the real problems that Republicans have getting elected this fall and in the coming years. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Thank you, Greg and Loretta, and Environmental Coffee House.
And Cat Cookie, thank you.
And Cat Cookie.